Welcome to the show, multi-million best-selling author Kate Mosse. But you're here tonight, or today, as a performer.
I know. I'm straying into your area, Graham.
But, like...
Giving it a go.
But I'm looking at your tour. It's not for the faint-hearted.
It's not for the faint-hearted.
It's 30-something dates.
It's also not for somebody in their 60s for the first time. I mean, not 60s for the first time, but doing a one-woman show for the first time. But you've got to give it a go, haven't you?
Yeah, well, Prue Leith is off.
Prue is off. We've talked about that. She's doing her thing.
We're children
we
compared to her.
are babies.
Yeah. So how did this idea come about?
Well, my new book, Warrior Queens and Quiet Revolutionaries, which is just a celebration of some incredible women, nearly 1,000 indeed, from history. And it's kind of a detective story, and it's a bit about my own family history. And then a theatre producer just said, have you ever thought of doing a one-woman show about this? And they'd obviously heard me rabbiting on somewhere else. And the idea of doing an actual show, with an interval, Maltesers and Prosecco for the audience, obviously.
Obviously.
Magic, moonlight, music, props. I just thought, I love theatre. And I just thought, I'd really like to challenge myself and see if I can manage that. So it's a proper all singing, all dancing show. I'm not in costume as such, but I've got all the bells and whistles, and it's going to be great, I think.
So there are audio-visual elements.
There are, monsieur. There's video, but projection.
Oh, wow.
I know, and all of this kind of stuff, because obviously I can't... when I'm talking about an amazing woman, one of the women in the show is the great Lily Parr, the most important English footballer, I would say, possibly of all. She scored 1,000 goals between 1919 and 1956. And she should be... Everybody should know her name, but I want to be able to have some footage, of the famous Goodison Park match in the 1920s and all of that. So there'll be lots of. It's not a book event. That's the point. It's not a book event. It sort of starts with lightning and thunder and.
My goodness.
I know there's a gravestone on the stage.
Wow.
I know.
I
mean, not a real one. Obviously, a prop.
And can presumably, because the book obviously would take 9, 10, 11 hours to do. So presumably you've whittled it down.
I've whittled it down.
Please, God, Kate.
It's going to be like one of those things I'm going to read Paradise Lost for the rest of time. I've whittled it down to about 20 women, and an interval in the middle, before and after, as it were. Lots of fun facts, lots of did you knows, but kind of 20 key women who kind of tell the story of all of us, about all the women that should be better known, have been left out of the history books. But the did you knows are fun, so... Bonnie and Reed, these are pirates, 18th century pirates. They'll be on the stage. My new novel, The Ghost Ship, is basically lesbian pirates, and that comes out in July. So I've been very interested in pirates. But nobody knows really that they are the inspiration for Keira Knightley's character in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, right.
Exactly. See, that is fun, isn't it?
Who's the Irish female pirate?
Oh, Grania O'Malley.
Oh, okay,
yes, and she was brilliant, actually. And she's in my book. And she will, of course, come in a bit as well. The one that I really love is this woman called Josephine Cochran. And she, in the 1890s, left her kitchen in Chicago, clearly really had enough, went to the shed at the end of her garden and invented the dishwasher.
Wow.
I know. And she actually said, if nobody else is going to invent a dishwashing machine, I better do it myself. Ask a busy woman.
Yeah.
So the show's just going to be great fun. And everywhere I go, I love England and I love visiting new places. So some of the places I know and some are brand new. But everywhere, the audience will be able to nominate their woman that they'd like to make better known. I'm not quite sure how the technology is going to work, but I've been assured it will work.
Of course it will.
Of course it will work. Because, everywhere you go, there'll be some incredible woman that I haven't heard of because they're not in the history books. And that kind of local audience, everybody where I go, being able to say, but you surely should have X, Y, and Z in your book.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that and just meeting lots of incredible people.
And presumably the reason why these women who have created history over the years, the reason we don't know them is because women weren't writing the history books.
That, monsieur, is exactly right, because what... history as a discipline is both incredibly ancient, Herodotus, right back then, but equally as a modern discipline, it's quite new. But almost all the power of writing was vested in religious institutions, which women weren't in. So there are, what I discovered, it is a detective story, and the show is kind of a detective story, because I discovered during lockdown my own great-grandmother was a really famous novelist. I didn't know.
You're kidding.
No, I know.
Well, that hadn't been passed down through your family.
Well, there was this thing, Graham, about somebody called Lily Watson who wrote, it was always kind of in inverted commas, as if it was saying, well, she does the flowers in church on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, little thing. But turns out 14 novels, hundreds of articles, was the main correspondent for Girls' Own paper, very religious, wrote children's stories, wrote devotional verse. When her most famous novel, The Vicar of Langthwaite, and I'm delighted that I'm going to be up in that part of the world, was published, the Prime Minister wrote to the Times to say, hurrah, a new novel from Lily Watson. And yet she doesn't appear in any biographies of Victorian writers. She's completely disappeared from the record. And I thought, a woman like that can disappear. What about everybody else?
Wow.
You know, and so it's about, the show is partly a love letter to history, but it's also saying you should know these women. So this is another one. Eunice Newton Foote, great name, obviously, in 1856 discovered global warming. 1856. She discovered that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere caused the atmosphere to heat, and that's what became known as greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
She had to sit in the audience and listen to the secretary of the Smithsonian, a man, present her findings and not even mention her name.
Wow.
Now, so there's a lot of those stories, but the show is for everybody. It's for girls and boys, men and women. It's not as kind of a rant. It's about saying, you know, that wonderful Shirley Chisholm, Shirley Chisholm, who was the first black woman to run for the Democratic nomination to be president. And she said, if they won't give you a seat at the table, bring your own folding chair. And so the show is about, it's not about not celebrating all the amazing men who've done great things, but it is about getting a bigger table and more chairs, because the women were there too,
How are you getting around? Are you in the back of a nice big car?
I regret to say that I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
We haven't yet had that discussion. No, I'll travel with the guys in the van with the props and the set and all of those kind of things.
We're loading in Miss Mosse.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not very big. I'll fit in the back. It'll be absolutely fine. No, because this is a brand new thing. No, new career in my 60s.
Yeah.
You and I just been talking about actually quite like getting older and choosing the things you do. Making a decision to have fun with this. And I don't know what it's going to be like. The show's going to be great. I don't know how good I'm going to be, but everything else about the lights and the music and everything is going to be fantastic. But I just feel I kind of want the whole experience. So I don't have a glamorous tour bus, and my main concern is making sure I've got my whole water bottle, frankly, because that's the key for me.
It will be cold backstage.
It will be cold, and I'm going all over the shop, as you say.
And have you talked to anyone about, protecting your voice, doing vocal warm-ups, things like that?
Well, my very wonderful son, Felix, has worked in music theatre and done all of those series, Les Mis and Aspects of Love and all of these things. So he's being really strict with me because he knows what I'm like. Because I love visiting new places. He said, "Mum, when you get somewhere, you mustn't go charging off and going and making friends with everybody and visiting the music, everything. You need to be calm in the day to save yourself for the evening." So I am taking that advice to heart, actually. The thing that's lovely is, I live in Sussex, and I've got friends who live in all sorts of places. And actually, I'm going to use it as an opportunity to see some old friends who live in different places.
I don't want to sound like your son.
Oh, no.
But that sounds like trouble to me.
Yes, well, it's going to be strictly decaffeinated Earl Grey.
Okay.
Nothing else.
And they talk to you.
They talk to me.
You sit there quietly while they get you up to speed on all their news.
Well, you do those things, don't you? I'm on vocal rest. You have to stick a sort of thing on. And your books have often they're based in fact. They're based on something true. But have you slightly fallen out of love with fiction? Or are you returning to fiction? No, I love making things up. I mean, because nobody can contradict you then, can they?
Yeah.
I've just delivered at the beginning of January my next novel.
Your Lesbian Pirate book.
My Lesbian Pirates. My publisher says that's not going to be the strapline. Another one said one of the lead characters prefers boats to blokes. We thought we might have that as the strapline. But in fact, it will obviously be a serious and principled marketing campaign. No, I love both, actually. I would never have had the chance to write this book, Warrior Queens, if it hadn't been for lockdown. Because it gave me the chance to look into my own family history. Because when I was looking into it, and a lot of this will come into the show as well, is that I was trying to find out my long lost ancestor, Lily Watson. And one of the things I discovered, and this is really spooky, is that her real name was Martha. Now, my daughter is Martha.
Oh, wow.
I know. All of these things. It's just
Yeah.
so it's just that I think whether I'm writing fiction or non-fiction, and you know, because you're a novelist yourself too, is it's about falling in love with that book. And we all know that the book you're not writing is the book you're really interested in. But the one that you're on a deadline, you're always like, oh. But for me, fiction and non-fiction don't feel very different. They feel like that moment when you dive into a swimming pool and you're just in it, you know, you're under the surface of the water. And the reason that I'm doing the show is that I feel that excitement, that adrenaline of, can I do it? And I feel that at the beginning of every book, and I'm sure you do the same. You know, can I finish this book? Can I even start this book?
And it sounds like at the end of this tour, after 30 dates, you will have another book with all these local heroes, local women who've...
Well, do you know, I am very interested in, there are lots of women explorers in the book and lots of inventors and lots of travellers, and the show will have a bit of everything in precisely for that reason. But I love Bill Bryson's writings.
Oh, yeah.
And I am really, and I am terribly English in the things that are good about being English as opposed to the stuff that sometimes feels uncomfortable. And, you know, I like the idea maybe of writing something about travelling about. Because my first telly thing was I had a book show called the Readers and Writers Roadshow on BBC 4 when it launched.
Yeah.
And we went all over the country and filmed in different places. And it made me realise that as an English person, you often you never go north. I live in Sussex. We always went south. We went to the New Forest or France. That was it for our family holidays. We never went anywhere else.
Got out.
Yeah.
Well, you're making up for it now. 31 dates all over the country, kicking off 28th of February, right till the 12th of April. Kate Mosse, Warrior Queens and Quiet Revolutionaries, How Women Also Built the World. It sounds like a fascinating, brilliant night. Thank you so much for coming in to see us, Kate Mosse.
Lovely to see you.